Hi, my name is Brittany Foster. Today I will be presenting my problem solution presentation for small group communications 210 in A and B. I'm old. For my small group, I have my mom and younger brother. So for my group B, we decided on homelessness. Before deciding that, however, we talked about many other topics. We were all women in my group, so we were talking about the differential pay between genders for a little bit. However, a lot of us were kind of struggling on how to find resources on that. So then we looked into bullying, because that's pretty broad. Maybe we've dealt with it, seen it, experienced it. But at the end of the day, we decided on homelessness. We have many people in the medical field, including myself, and we've seen it. Maybe some people experience this, seen people going borderline of it, other people, maybe family members and whatnot. So my presentation will be talking about homelessness, and that is the first part of my PowerPoint. It just says homelessness as my presentation. If you go to the next slide, on the top it talks about homelessness affecting millions in America. You can see a bar graph and below a pie graph. And on the right side, there is a saying that's saying 17 out of 10,000 Americans in one night in January would experience homelessness. And that was in 2019 statistic. On this resource, this is called homelessness.org or endhomelessness.org. You can donate on this page. You can see statistics all the way from 2007 to 2019 currently. And as you see on my bar graph, it has categories like overall, homelessness, and veterans, youth, and so on and so forth. Below the graph, you can see the pie chart, and it talks about how that percent that year, which was 2019 on mine, was sheltered and unsheltered. Some of those were 50% sheltered, 50% not. Others were 65% sheltered, and some were only about 25% sheltered that same year due to the category. So if you look at the next slide, I decided to go more in depth with Ohio, since if I'm personally going to make a difference, it's not going to be all of America, it's going to have to be in Ohio to start out with. In Ohio, I looked at our statistic on this picture and showed how our higher population of homelessness is in many counties, including Akron, Cleveland, Toledo, Franklin, which is part of Columbus. And so I thought to myself, what is making those such a higher number? What can we do to lower those numbers? Is something else equating into making those numbers more high, minus just being a higher population? Because some of those places aren't as high as other populations that are lower or higher. My next slide has two more graphs from 2019 as well. All of these are 2019. You can see on the left side, again, our total on many things like sheltered, unsheltered, critical, veterans. And overall, from 2007 to 2019, Ohio has gone down and decreased in homelessness. But then you look on the right side, it looks at Franklin County, part of Columbus, and almost every single line from 2007 to 2019 has gone up. And I wondered to myself, what's making those numbers again just shoot up in those places? What's the equation going to it besides just being a higher population? So my next slide was part of an article resource, and on the top it says, what is affecting Ohio's homelessness? I read this article. It had a lot of good sayings in it. It had a lot of good statistics, and it did a study in Dayton, Ohio that talked about illegal drugs, opioids, being part of the problem personally for them of homelessness. So backtracking, looking at Ohio, looking at the counties, I looked again, and all those numbers in opioids were very high compared to other places. So this article proves, in my research, that opioids are another issue with homelessness. Not only are people homeless and then using drugs, but people using drugs getting to their point where their life's just going in the wrong path, it's going downhill, and they become homeless. So going back into my group, I asked them, hey, what do you think we can do, so I can put it in my presentation? You know, if we were just talking about us 6 in this group, what could we personally do to help homelessness ourselves without going out and doing anything too crazy? And a lot of them were talking about their jobs and how, again, a lot of them are in the medical field and they work at hospitals, how my ER and all of theirs personally have a chart. It has a point system that helps see if people are on a borderline of homelessness, that they are homeless, what they can do, how we can educate. So on the right side I have 3 parts, and a lot of them talked about they have personal cards that are specifically for homelessness, kind of just to give to the patient at that time, that we can see from face to face, and maybe they're not there for homelessness, but we can help them in their illness and we can help them after they leave the hospital, so they're in a safe place. So we have cards that have opportunities. We also talked about hotlines, which kind of go with the cards, but we were talking about them being 2 different, so I put them both down separate. The hotlines more include a specific place. Maybe they did come in, they're an opioid abuser, so they have a specific card for an opioid abuser and they're homeless. It goes to a specific housing residence. We also talked about education, which kind of goes with not only the card, but if you're on the border of homelessness, how we can, you know, turn things around, how we can get gears going the right path. If you're homeless, just became homeless, have always been homeless, and kind of educate on what you can make a difference. You know, again, giving them those resources and opportunities, those cards, those hotlines, to at least get them in a safe place after they leave the hospital. Because we all talked about many people, especially before the pandemic, who were homeless would just sit in the ER to be warm, to charge their phone, you know, to get a snack, just to be in a warm place. And then in the winter, they come in with really unnecessary issues, potentially, just to have a warm bed and hot food for a night. And on the right side, I looked at Ohio's resource itself. That is another resource I used online. That was an EBSCOT, I believe, article. And it talked about the central hotlines. It talked about places in Columbus. If you are a young kid, they have the Huckleberries. They have many named after each other. Kind of go into housing resident for if you're a drug abuser, if you're just homeless, if you've always been homeless, if you're in an abusive relationship, domestic, families, and the resources go on. And it's not just for homelessness. There's many other categories on the left side if you click on the link. And then next one, I talked about the grid that we had to put in our presentation. I had 2 topics that I was thinking that we can do ourselves. The first topic talks about building houses, opening up places. In this mind, I'm thinking malls that are closed down or buildings that are no longer in use that could be easily rebuilt up for people who are homeless, like in a mall. Things are categorized off. You can make that a whole place just for them. There's food places already that can give them jobs, a shelter, you know, everything all in one, clothing areas, and so on and so forth. And that one actually won out of the 2 categories that were better out of the 1 to 5 point portion. My second solution was talking about making businesses specifically for homelessness. So they work there, they get food there, they house there, not in one specific area, but just small designated, you know, like a brand that is in different areas for them to use. And if it was just for them, kind of like Section 8 is how I think of it, but more specifically for homeless people, so they're the only ones working there. You know, it's only for them to get their opportunity, so it's not like a competition compared to somebody who maybe just happens to be more educated, more in a stable place, because they're just on 2 different paths at that point. In my final PowerPoint, I talked about what I can personally do for the problem. I would be able, for Ohio, I have resources to volunteer, to support, to educate, especially in the hospital. I can educate very easily. There's many areas around here that I've seen on that place that had the hotlines that you can educate and go volunteer on and help just support people. I also wanted to promote, you know, I have many social medias. You just on Facebook, you can press a donate. People do cancer organizations. We can talk about, I can do a homeless organization for Ohio itself. And there's educate, support, and support, which support kind of went with the social media. Just spreading the news, talking about our statistics, bringing it to light and stuff, especially with hard times like COVID-19. It's very big on the news, but we still have other issues, and homelessness and COVID-19 could become an issue. And the statistics, again, I've seen at the hospital, they're very high. So in my presentation on homelessness, I talked about how I can help, what my group said, and that it is, in my opinion, a very big issue in America and in Ohio, and we can all make a difference with many resources that I put on here. Everyone can donate on that link. Know the statistics, know the high areas, what we can all do.